So in the next few minutes, I'll describe to you this new center. But before I do that, I thought I'd introduce myself, and so you'll understand the perspective I bring to this session. I'm a University of Western Ontario professor with graduate students, a laboratory, writing grants, raising money to support students' research. My students get master's degrees and PhDs. So like many other university professors. However, I've also been involved in the commercialization process out of our research from our lab for the past 20-odd years. From our lab, we have spun off 3 companies already, and in fact, what I'll describe today is actually a 4th company. And we've been involved in patenting, IP process, so we have about 35 issued and pending patents from our lab with about 12 licenses generating royalties. So we've been involved in the process from concept, good ideas, bad ideas, in the lab, all the way to working with companies to generate products which are sold worldwide, generating royalties for the university and for the inventors. So in doing all that, I've been involved in all the ups and downs in the commercialization process for a professor in the university, and in fact, all the issues raised by the other speakers this morning, as well as previous to me. All the issues ranging from having IP ripped off by companies that work with us, all the way they're working effectively with companies in generating products for the betterment of health of mankind. So, we're familiar with all those issues, and based on those issues, we have made a proposal to the federal government to the initiative called Center of Excellence in Commercialization and Research. It's a federal initiative that funds centers, such as I'll describe now, centers which aim is to accelerate commercialization of innovations in Canada. So the sector I'll be talking about is imaging. And this is my background, and so our focus was in furthering imaging technology commercialization in Canada, and as I'll describe in the next few minutes, what I'll describe is the new Center for Imaging Technology Commercialization. Of course, the first question is why? Why this sector? Why apply for funding? Why get the funding to do this? Why in Canada? How are we positioned globally to do this? We're competing, of course, in a global sense, and with major initiatives in the US. It's clear to us, it was clear to many, that there's enormous opportunity to move Canadian medical imaging technology in a major step forward. And we already have the environment that can be done. And the reason I say this is because it's based on these 3 aspects. Excellence. There's no doubt that Canadian university imaging researchers are internationally known. We have outstanding imaging investigators across Canada with fantastic track records, winning awards, and highly sought after by the private sector and granting agencies for their advice. We have also a tremendous source of innovations. These innovators are generating IP, generating new discoveries, some not protected, many are protected. And also a very large group of outstanding trainees. Our trainees are highly sought after by the private sector around the world, actually. Our trainees now are being sought after by Chinese companies. So we find some of our trainees now going back to China to participate in their growth in this sector. The culture of commercialization is an important issue in many universities. Commercialization aspect is really foreign or just developing in some universities. But in the medical imaging sector in universities, it's already fairly robust. Imaging investigators have been involved in commercialization process. They've spun off many companies. From our lab, I described 3. In Ontario alone, I counted 18. And across Canada, probably double that. And some of these spin-off companies have been highly successful, with a few of them with exit strategies in many dozens of millions. So there is already a culture We have outstanding investigators and trainees, and our infrastructure is really world-class. Infrastructure in terms of medical imaging equipment in universities for medical imaging research rivals the best in the world. In fact, in some situations, in some aspects, the imaging technology within our universities for research is better what's available for healthcare in hospitals. So we have outstanding infrastructure, world-class, really outstanding trainees, a culture of commercialization, and already international recognized sector in Canada of medical imaging investigators. So we are well positioned to accelerate this sector. Just to give you some evidence for what I say, I mean, it's nice to be able to pat ourselves on the back, but just to give you some of this evidence in terms of funding from the gold standard of funding in Canada, the Canadian Institutes for Health Research. There are about over 100 grants to imaging investigators. Medical imaging investigators were totaling about $19 million in the last 5 years. Significant funding from the Canadian Cancer Society initiatives, Terry Fox Foundation, on major funding from the Ontario Institute for Cancer Research, investing heavily in imaging technology in Ontario for a tune of $23 million, and hopefully another $23 million over the next 5 years. The Ontario Research Foundation is invested just in the last 5 years, $40 million. And the CRC, Canada Research Chairs, are invested about $10 million with 13 CRCs, Canada Research Chairs in Canada. And in terms of infrastructure, the CFI has invested over its lifetime over nearly $400 million in upgrading imaging technology across Canada and universities. So these investments are enormous. They're probably rivaled anywhere in the world per capita, certainly anywhere, probably among the best, maybe better than anywhere else. So we applied to the federal initiative to establish the center, and then we were successful recently, only about 5 months ago. And in our mission, so I am the center director, and my associate, Martin Yaffe at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center, is the associate scientific director. So we have a partnership between Toronto and London, specifically Western and Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center, working very closely together, and we achieved this step so far. And our mission is to help Canadian imaging small and medium-sized companies become successful. We talked about in the last speakers and earlier this morning about spin-offs and startups, and as we have done, I believe it's quite easy to spin off a company and find a few dollars from grants and so on, but it's very difficult to make these companies successful. And this is, I believe we can generate many small companies, but many of them don't survive. And we are trying to deal with that issue. So help Canadian imaging SMEs become successful is the key goal for our new center. Accelerate commercialization of research for medical imaging research labs in universities. There's continuing enormous capacity in our universities to generate more IP, whether it's used to spin off or to license out. There's enormous capacity, so we hope to be able to help various investigators do that, and most importantly, overcome barriers to commercialization from our academic groups and SMEs. And the last speakers highlighted all the barriers that innovators face from get their idea, their terrific idea, to become successful as a product with international markets. So we are focusing on these barriers extensively. Now, in developing our technology from our lab and our colleagues at Sunnybrook, we understood that SMEs, particularly small companies, startups, and university investigators, face significant barriers. And we are trying to address these barriers. And so our goal is, by addressing these barriers, we can de-risk investments into this sector, into the medical imaging technology sector, by helping to overcome these barriers through personnel, expertise, and funding we can partner with a small company, university investigator, and demonstrate to angels or VCs that their risk is minimized by incorporating Simtek's, our center's expertise. So, for example, access to imaging facilities. Many small companies don't have difficulty getting access to imaging technology, such as MR scanners. To get access in a hospital is very difficult because it's such a long waiting period to use medical imaging equipment, high-tech equipment. We have MR scanners, CT scanners, ultrasound machines, X-ray equipment in our research labs available for testing of new innovations, and we'll make that available to SMEs. Clinical trial expertise in developing a new product, and the technology has to undergo a trial. And many new investigators, many small companies don't have the expertise to run an imaging clinical trial. And we will be able to provide some of that expertise. And linkages, most importantly, linkages to physicians, to radiologists, nuclear medicine physicians, surgeons, urologists, and so on. A small company in a town without academic hospital, without a medical school, may not have access to these kind of physicians. But through our contacts in Toronto, London, and elsewhere, we will be able to accelerate or help develop these partnerships. An important aspect is pathology validation. In validating a new innovative technology, and typically the gold standard is pathology. To diagnose cancer, we need to obtain a specimen to be able to confirm that what the disease is. And so pathology validation is a key component. And in fact, it's quite a big component in our new center, because we identified pathology, digital pathology, as a major potential field that we can explore and exploit through software development. Basically, extend our imaging innovations from radiology to the pathology department in terms of image processing. Regulatory filing, already mentioned earlier, getting new devices into the market have to go through a regulatory process, and many are unfamiliar with the process. In fact, start the process too late. The process has to start early on in the cycle of device development. And business management expertise will hopefully provide good advice to startup companies and help write business plans. So our business goals are these: to support external ventures, so basically establish and grow successful imaging companies. This will be to help small spin-offs and medium-sized companies grow. And together with our potential, with our help, we can de-risk these kind of investments and make it more attractive to the private sector for investment. We'll develop internal projects. We'll have our own staff hopefully will be quite innovative, and will generate our own IP within our center. Some examples of internal projects already ongoing in these early stages: digital pathology scanning, for example, in generating special software for managing digital pathology slides. So anybody who knows about pathology understands that the images are huge. In looking at, let's say, an organ or a tumor, it may generate hundreds of megabytes, maybe even terabyte of data to manage. And so that's a major initiative and very difficult to deal with. And for example, 3D reconstruction services in various aspects. And also, so our goal, as mandated by this whole program, is to be sustainable after 5 years. So we need to partner with external ventures to bring money together, and of course develop internal IP so we can generate our own income. So we have established 3 cores. The one core of activity is dealing with technology development, both hardware and software. We'll have expertise to support specialized hardware development suitable for the medical imaging market, and software, develop special modules. You see in the picture, in the top picture, you see a number of students looking at a device. This is developed, for example, at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center. to deal with getting drugs through the blood-brain barrier in dealing with brain cancer. And the bottom two slides are multimodality registration of images of men's prostate to better deal with biopsy and therapy of the prostate. So these are kind of technologies, both instrumentation and software, will be able to deal with. Technology validation, I already mentioned pathology, but also test devices and phantoms. So these are will be able to work with other companies and develop our own specialized test devices suitable for medical imaging. So in fact, our first revenue check it's only $3,000, but it's in fact in this area. We already sold our first two small little phantoms. And so I think this is a great need, and we'd like to partner with companies. Some of them are in London, and work together to generate more devices for testing imaging equipment. Digital pathology validation I talked about, so we developed specialized software modules that could improve the workflow in a pathology department and clinical trial support in terms of technology validation. And the third core deals with commercialization, so the commercialization process, so management and expertise and services. So this is in partnership with the Ontario Institute for Cancer Research. They are investing in this initiative, as well as HTX. So they are, both of these groups are working closely with us in managing IP and providing expertise. Also generating new investment, as I described, attract new investments to imaging technology initiatives, and a very important aspect is regulatory support. In fact, in our survey of, as I'll describe shortly, in our survey, the number one need by investigators is really around regulatory support, dealing with the whole process from dealing with a device registry to the full FDA filing. So we believe that we would be sustainable in 5 years, and so we have goals over the next few years to achieve. For example, we'll continue stakeholder investment. We have we have stakeholder investments already, and we'll have to continue that and grow fee for service. I described already that we have small income already, and we hope to grow it to be much more substantial. And the licensing and royalty revenue, that will take a few years to generate, because the whole cycle of from IP to a product to royalties takes, it probably take about 4 or 5 years. So that will happen later. So we're beginning to hire people into our center. We'll have about 30 people in our center between Toronto and London. But before we began to hire, although we just hired a few key people, we are in the process of surveying the medical imaging technology sector, both in universities as well as SMEs, and to identify what they really need. I showed you what we think the barriers are, but we have to validate that before we actually build our services. And so we're in that process. We identified the areas that we could have an impact. We're identifying what the client needs. These are the SMEs and university investigators, and what we can provide to them that they can't get where they are. And we have to define what will be success. This is an unusual aspect. The center is incorporated as a not-for-profit, so it's not like a company selling devices where we know the focus is quite clear. Here we're providing a service to clients across Canada. So it's a very different kind of business in a sense. So we have to make sure that we understand what would make us successful. Is it sustainability with lots of cash? Is it to help small companies, to help them grow, and so on? I think the latter, but we have to validate that. And of course, develop a set of criteria so we can pass that on to the federal government to help shape their future investments in this kind of enterprise. And so what would we consider success at this early stage? So I believe accelerate growth of a few companies. We try to be have reasonable goals, so 3 to 5 companies, SMEs grow to be successful. Spin-offs, I think, will be easy. 4 to 5, our goal was set quite low. We're already talking to individuals in universities, and I think we can easily spin off probably about half a dozen. But we want to make sure that spinning off companies is not for the sake of spinning off, but to ensure that they are on solid foundation and they will be successful. So as I said, I think it's easy to spin them off. It's very tough to make them successful. Increased number of jobs in Canada, and in Ontario, in London, and in Toronto, and attract new investments through these partnerships and generate revenue at about 1.5 million per year, and to become visible, internationally visible, as an innovative approach to partner universities in the private sector and accelerate innovations out of universities into the private sector and make small and medium-sized companies successful. So with that, if you want to talk to me, I'll, of course, at lunch, and you're welcome to, of course, email me and call me anytime for any more clarification. Thank you very much for your attention.